The morning was calm, almost too calm. Fishermen working in the Caribbean waters had seen days like this countless times before. Golden light stretching over the waves, a gentle breeze, and nothing but the sound of the sea around them. But then came the call. A crackling voice over the radio spoke of something strange, something impossible. A ship, old and rusted, drifting aimlessly in the water. It shouldn't have been there. Not in that location, and not in that condition. At first, the crew thought it was just another abandoned vessel, the kind the ocean leaves behind after decades of neglect. But as they approached, the air grew heavier, charged with an unexplainable tension. And then they saw it. A massive hull covered in rust and algae, its name barely legible but unmistakable, SS Cotalloya. The crew froze in disbelief. Stories of the Cotalloya had been told for generations, a ship that had vanished without a trace over a century ago. No debris, no distress signals, no survivors. It had simply disappeared, and yet here it was, floating before them as if it had been plucked straight from the past. The ship was eerily intact, its deck empty, its cabin silent, no signs of life. But the more they explored, the stranger it became. Dishes were still on the tables, logbooks lay undisturbed in the captain's quarters, and clothing hung neatly in the crew's cabins. It was as if time had paused, holding the ship in a frozen moment. The fishermen quickly radioed for help, but even as they waited, an unshakable sense of dread crept over them. This wasn't just a shipwreck, it was a ghost. The Cotalloya's reappearance has baffled scientists, sailors, and theorists alike. What happened to the ship during its 100-year absence? Where had it gone, and why had it returned now? Today we delve into the haunting mystery of the SS Cotalloya, a ship lost in time, its journey cloaked in secrecy, and its story more chilling than any fiction. The year was 1920, and the world was finding its footing after the turmoil of the First World War. Commerce and trade were booming, and the seas were alive with activity. Among the countless vessels navigating the oceans was the SS Cotalloya, a sturdy cargo ship owned by the Havana shipping company. The Cotalloya was a 200-foot-long steamship, known for its reliability and strong build. On the morning of April 4th, it departed from Havana, Cuba, loaded with sugar bound for New York City. Its cargo wasn't unusual, and neither was its route. A straight shot across the Gulf of Mexico, passing close to the Bahamas before heading north along the Atlantic coast. The weather that day was calm, with clear skies and no signs of storms on the horizon. The captain, John Martinez, was a seasoned sailor with over 25 years of experience. His crew of 15 men were equally skilled, and the voyage was expected to be routine. Radio communications from the Cotalloya began as usual. Throughout the first 2 days, the ship reported smooth sailing, steady progress, and no issues. The last message received from Captain Martinez came on the evening of April 6th. Weather remains clear, ETA as scheduled, all systems functioning normally. But as the sun rose on April 7th, the Cotalloya had vanished. When the ship failed to arrive in New York as planned, the shipping company raised the alarm. Initially, there was little concern. Delays were common due to weather or minor mechanical issues. However, as hours turned into days, panic set in. A massive search operation was launched. Ships and aircraft combed the Cotalloya's planned route, covering thousands of square miles of ocean. Messages were sent to ports along the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic, asking if the ship had made an unplanned stop. The Navy even deployed advanced sonar equipment to scan the ocean floor. Despite these efforts, not a single piece of evidence was found. No debris, no oil slicks, no distress signals. It was as if the ship and its crew had been erased from existence. Newspapers across the Americas covered the story, dubbing it the ghost ship of the Gulf. Families of the crew demanded answers, but none were forthcoming. Speculation ran wild. Some believed the ship had fallen victim to pirates, though no ransom or stolen cargo ever surfaced. Others suggested a catastrophic explosion, but the lack of debris made this unlikely. And then there were those who whispered about the Bermuda Triangle. The Cotalloya's route took it dangerously close to the northern edge of this infamous region. a place already notorious for mysterious disappearances. As the weeks turned into months, the world moved on, and the Cotalloya became another unsolved maritime mystery. For decades, its name faded into history, remembered only in the occasional ghost story told by sailors on long voyages. But for the families of the crew, the pain of not knowing never subsided. Where had the Cotalloya gone? What had happened to the 15 men aboard? These questions remained unanswered for 100 years, until the ship's shocking reappearance in 2020. 100 years after the SS Cotalloya vanished, the calm waters of the Caribbean bore witness to an event as perplexing as the ship's disappearance. It was early morning in June 2020, and a small fishing crew was working their usual route near the Bahama Bank. The day began like any other. Clear skies, gentle waves, and nothing unusual in sight. But as the sun rose higher, one of the crew members spotted something in the distance, a dark shape breaking the monotony of the horizon. At first, they assumed it was just another abandoned shipwreck. It wasn't uncommon to find derelict vessels drifting in the Caribbean, remnants of storms or piracy. But as they drew closer, unease began to creep in. The shape didn't look like a modern wreck. Its silhouette was unmistakably that of an old steamship, the kind no longer in use for decades. As the fishing boat approached, the silence became deafening. Seagulls that normally circled such wrecks were absent. The water around the ship was eerily still, as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. Then they saw it, the name SS Cotalloya etched into the rusted hull. The letters, though faded and corroded, were clear enough to confirm what they were seeing. The fishermen froze. They knew the stories, the legends passed down over generations about a ship that had vanished a century ago without a trace. And yet here it was, floating before them like a ghost from the past. One of the crew radioed the authorities, his voice trembling as he described the find. Within hours, a salvage team arrived, accompanied by scientists and maritime investigators. What they found only deepened the mystery. The exterior of the SS Cotalloya bore the scars of time. Its hull was coated in thick layers of rust and algae, and its lifeboats hung crookedly from their davits. But as investigators boarded the ship, they were struck by what they found inside. The interior was remarkably preserved, as though the crew had simply stepped away moments ago. Plates and utensils sat neatly on the dining tables, some still containing remnants of long-decayed food. The captain's logbook rested on his desk, open to the last entry dated April 6, 1920, the day before the ship disappeared. Even more unsettling were the crew quarters. Beds were made, personal belongings neatly arranged, and clothing hung in the lockers. A few photographs, yellowed with age, were found tucked into drawers showing smiling faces of the crew, unaware of the fate that awaited them. Yet despite the signs of recent human activity, there was no trace of the crew. Not a single body, not even skeletal remains, were found on board. It was as if the men had simply vanished into thin air. The investigators also noted an eerie absence of typical decay. Items that should have disintegrated after a century at sea, papers, fabrics, even metal tools, remained largely intact. This anomaly raised even more questions. Where had the Cotalloya been, and how had it remained in such a state? Forensic teams were brought in to examine the ship, hoping to find clues about its journey and the fate of its crew. Samples were taken from every corner of the vessel, from the algae-encrusted hull to the untouched cabins. One of the most puzzling discoveries was the lack of biological growth typically found on long-lost shipwrecks. While the exterior was weathered, the interior seemed shielded from the ravages of time. Tests on the materials revealed no unusual preservation methods, leaving scientists baffled. Even stranger, the ship's navigational equipment was still functional, primitive by modern standards but intact. Charts marked with the Cotalloya's intended route were found in the navigation room, but they offered no indication of what had caused the ship to stray off course or disappear. The captain's log provided few additional clues. His final entry was mundane, noting favorable weather conditions and steady progress toward New York. There was no mention of distress, no warning of impending danger. It was as if whatever happened to the Cotalloya occurred in an instant, without giving the crew time to react. The theory of parallel universes, while rooted in speculative science, has captured the imagination of physicists and storytellers alike. Could the SS Cotalloya have slipped into a parallel reality for a century, only to re-emerge in our world? Parallel universe theory suggests that multiple dimensions coexist alongside our own, each with its own version of events. Some scientists theorize that certain areas of the planet, places like the Bermuda Triangle, could act as thin spots where the barriers between these dimensions weaken. If this is true, it's possible that the Cotalloya accidentally crossed into another dimension, existing there for what felt like moments to its crew, while a century passed in our timeline. Evidence supporting this idea is, of course, circumstantial. The Cotalloya's sudden reappearance, its eerily intact interior, and the complete absence of its crew all lend a haunting plausibility to the theory, but without tangible proof, parallel universes remain in the realm of conjecture. Still, the very notion forces us to ask profound questions. What if these dimensional overlaps happen more often than we realize? What if other vanishings, ships, planes, even people, are the result of similar crossings? And what would it take for someone or something to return from such a journey? The SS Cotalloya's disappearance occurred perilously close to the edge of the infamous Bermuda Triangle, a region shrouded in mystery for centuries. Stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, this triangle has been the site of countless disappearances. Ships vanish without a trace, planes drop off radar, and strange anomalies plague navigation systems. Could the Cotalloya be yet another victim of this enigmatic region? One prevailing theory about the Bermuda Triangle involves powerful magnetic fields beneath the Earth's crust. These fields are believed to interfere with navigational instruments, causing ships and planes to veer off course. In some cases, the disturbances might be so severe that they create a rift in space-time itself, leading to phenomena like temporal displacement or dimensional shifts. The Cotalloya's final radio transmission gave no indication of distress, but its close proximity to this treacherous zone cannot be ignored. The ship's disappearance and its bizarre preservation upon reappearance echo countless other stories tied to the Bermuda Triangle, stories that remain just as mysterious today as they were decades ago. If the triangle is indeed a gateway to something beyond our comprehension, the Cotalloya's return may be one of the few breadcrumbs we have to uncover its secrets. The reappearance of the SS Cotalloya has left us with more questions than answers. Where did the ship go during its century-long absence? If it truly vanished into another dimension or a temporal anomaly, why did it return? And what became of the 15 crew members who were aboard? The ship's condition adds another layer of complexity. How could its interior remain so preserved, with personal items and documents seemingly untouched by time? Was it protected by some unknown force, or is there a natural explanation yet to be discovered? And what of the crew? Did they abandon ship in a moment of crisis, only for their lifeboats to meet a watery grave? Or were they victims of a phenomenon so extraordinary that it defies the very laws of nature? These questions have haunted investigators, theorists, and even ordinary people who've heard the Cotalloya's story. But perhaps the most unsettling question is this: if the SS Cotalloya could return after 100 years, what else might still be out there, waiting to come back? The story of the SS Cotalloya isn't just about a ship. It's about the limits of human understanding and the vast uncharted forces that govern our world. From magnetic anomalies to dimensional rifts, from the mysteries of time to the secrets of the Bermuda Triangle, the Cotalloya challenges us to confront the unknown. And yet, the questions it leaves behind remind us of something profound. The ocean, with all its beauty and danger, holds mysteries that may never fully reveal themselves. What do you think happened to the Cotalloya? Was it lost to the depths of time, a victim of another dimension, or something we can't even imagine yet? Share your theories and let's unravel this mystery together.